good afternoon and good evening to you. Welcome again to TFH, the Full 100. This is where the truth is told. Today is Friday, the 8th of May, 2020. So this is a further clarification to my statements yesterday. But before I start today's show, I've got another video to show you just to further emphasize the urgency in creating the Union of Black Nations. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. Now, have a look at today's show, today's video. However, before I play the video, I must warn you, this is a video that I found online. However, it replicates so many other ones that I've seen in the past. Please take a look.
This is not safe again. This one you're going.
Let's go no one go. What's the night again? See there. According to the night, they just say
Mommy, Ugoso. Mommy, oh.
Welcome back. I shall now begin my statement. Good day to you all. Yesterday, I called for serious attempts at changing the destiny of Black lives. A change which I believe will make the change from cradle to grave. I called for a coming together of all nations who identify as Black. A coming together for the common goal of the nations involved. A coming together which, if my vision is realized, will lead to the security of the ordinary Black individual in any territory across the planet. I asked for talks to begin as soon as travel restrictions are lifted. I urged President Obama and current South African President Ramaphosa to open the lines of communication to begin discussing logistics and possibilities. A journey to the moon and back still has to begin with the first mile. I wish to go further today to address some matters that I can see from the last 24 hours needs to be expanded on. I will use today's statement to address three components of my initiative. 1, the Security Council. 2, the principle of one diplomatic voice. And lastly, the principle of one army. I'll start with the Security Council. The vision is of a council established to speak as one voice for all member states, similar to the existing UN Security Council. I propose that all 54 countries of the African continent, plus the 13 island nations of the West Indies, including Cuba, but also the wider territories of 13 more, making a total of 26 Caribbean nations, all speak with one voice through the Security Council. My proposal is for fair representation for all nations in the Council. This can be achieved through rotated representation by mutual agreement. My proposal, if put in place, will have 8 sitting members at all times. The 8 members will be the rulers of those countries, of their countries. These 8 current sitting members would have to proportionately represent faiths, languages for historical affiliations, and geographical location. For example, of the 80 countries mentioned, many more are Christian than are Islamic countries. So you could argue that 5 members should always come from Christian countries and 3 from the Islamic nations. You could then have, with regards languages spoken, 3 of English-speaking nations, 3 French-speaking nations, and 2 Spanish-speaking nations. Countries such as Cuba and Dominica are Spanish-speaking nations, black Spanish-speaking nations. And finally, you could argue, based on geographical location, that the continent of Africa have at least half the members on the Security Council. Based on this principle, you can have 2 French, 2 English-speaking, as well as 2 Christian and 2 Islamic nations just from the continent of Africa, which then has met 3 of the criteria by picking those 4 nations and then leaving the number other 4 countries to be made up from outside of the continent. My proposal will see 80 countries from 8 groups of 10 select 1 country every 5 years to represent each group. This means you have 10 groups of 8 countries. Each group nominates somebody every 5 years to represent that group on the Security Council. The Security Council will be the sole diplomatic voice representing sovereign nations and private citizens alike, regardless of territory. It will be the only entity able to call for military intervention, humanitarian intervention, evacuations, representation on world matters, as well as intervention in legal injustices and other individual citizen matters. However, the remit of the Council will be to represent every human being of African descent on the globe. While speaking for member nations on the international stage, each member nation is still a sovereign nation, and so, if so chooses, can speak for itself on the world stage. I'm now going to go to the second topic, which is the One Army. I called yesterday for a pooling of armies, equipment, intelligence, experience, knowledge, and expertise to form one army of black nations. I propose this army be contributed to in terms of manpower, funding, research and development, and intelligence capacity by all member states. I propose nominating designated territories and countries to act as bases for the BN Army, the Black Nations Army. Locations for its Marines, Army troops, naval ports, and Air Force bases. My suggestion also includes allocating a Pentagon-style headquarters in a chosen country. I propose, under the command of the BN Army, task forces for coastal and sea rescue, mountain rescue, rapid evacuation response teams, humanitarian relief capacity, and a medical and pandemic response teams should be put together, trained, equipped to the highest world standards, and managed and deployed under the BN Army. The BN Army's goal must be independence. Independence from dependency on any nations outside of its membership. To achieve this, the leadership must begin developing an arms industry as a case of urgency. The Army's development plan must be inclusive of all nations, so the technology and wealth, employment opportunities, and local supply chain requirements are evenly spread amongst all member states. Let me finish on this. My vision is not of an army preparing for a so-called race war, nor is it to intimidate or seek revenge. It is a must-have tool in diplomacy. Without a respected force, we are nobodies. In the process of building this project, many of the member nations will all improve their own domestic forces, services, rescue capabilities, equipment and training, which in turn will benefit local citizens in all member states. Hopefully next time there's a flood or drought in Africa, the pictures we'll see will be of well-equipped, well-trained, well-clothed black faces from the Black Nations Army carrying out relief, or we'll definitely have some pride and respect when we see black faces on ships from the Black Nations Army rescue ships on the coast of Cuba or the Bahamas rescuing hurricane victims. These are my dreams of tomorrow. Last one. One diplomatic voice. My vision is to bring together all member states' requirements, goals, plans, necessities, and more, so as to align them in such a way as to complement each other's. This is not a call for economic union. This is not the European Union or the African Union, but more a serious attempt at economic partnering, political partnering, scientific, military, technological, educational, and security partnering. This will ensure an even and steady pace of growth amongst all member states. It will ensure fast development similar to China or UAE's in recent memory. Representation in the trade, defense, health, foreign affairs, internal affairs, security, aviation, space industry, manufacturing, fisheries, homeland security, Union of Black Nations spokespeople will be evenly and strategically chosen and must be rotated every 5 years. These posts will be the faces representing the Union on the world stage. They will, however, always act on orders of the Security Council, who in turn takes its orders or pursues policies laid out by member states through mutually beneficial goals and interests. All of this is possible as long as we are willing, as long as we adopt a can-do attitude rather than a defeatist one. This is not a should we do this time. It is a we must do this moment. Contact your leaders, parliamentarians, contact your senators and governors, write to your mayors and councillors. No noise is too little. As for my President Barack Obama, you are the only black person of prominence who carries enough clout to get this going. Please do this for the black nations and the black peoples of planet Earth. Now, that is the end of my statement. Please feel free to connect with me on social media for further clarification. I will be putting out further statements as the days and the weeks go by. What you can do for us and for every one of us is contact your mayors, contact your councillors, contact your MPs, especially your black ones. Those of you in black nations, contact your leaders, contact your senators, your prime ministers, and draw attention to this to as many people, your churches. This will definitely save lives. The video at the beginning of this show shows a group of hundreds, if not thousands of black people in chaos, calling for, if that were to happen with the Security Council already established, then we wouldn't have to ask what nationality they are, where they've come from. There will be no such need to do that, because the Security Council will see them all as one people and send assistance and engage diplomatically with whoever are in charge of that country that incident took place. This is a case of urgency, and I do believe that we can do it. As I said a minute ago, a can-do attitude is what we need. Right, I'm going to end today's video with an update from yesterday's video, which is the shooting of a African-American guy by a father and son, an ex-police officer and his son. The good news is they've been arrested today. The bad news is we've been there before. Take a look at the video.
Of Gregory and Travis McMichael within the past 15 minutes. Late this evening, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation announced charges against Gregory and Travis McMichael for killing Ahmaud Arbery. The charges: murder and aggravated assault. The arrest came just 2 days after this video showing Arbery's killing surfaced on social media.
It started an investigation by the GBI and an outcry from people, celebrities, and political figures across the nation. Now, here is what we know about this arrest. When GBI investigators arrived at the McMichaels' home around 8 o'clock, a neighbor tells me the shooter, 34-year-old Travis McMichael, was playing with his 2-year-old son in the backyard when he was put into handcuffs. His father, Gregory, a former Brunswick district attorney investigator, was taken into custody inside the house. One of the arresting officers was consoling Travis McMichael by patting him on the back. Travis was on the verge of tears while being led away. The McMichaels were taken into custody in less than 5 minutes. News4Jax reporter Maggie Lorenz joins us live in Brunswick, in the neighborhood where this all happened. Maggie, what are you seeing there tonight?
Tarek, we just drove through the neighborhood. It's dark, it's quiet, neighbors are inside, but this is the neighborhood, Satilla Shores, where Arbery was shot and killed in broad daylight back in February. Take a look at these photos. We got these sent to us from a News4Jax viewer at the scene of the arrest of Gregory and Travis McMichael. They were both charged with murder and aggravated assault and were booked into the Glenn County Jail. The GBI announced the arrest the day after it began its own investigation at the request of an outside prosecutor. The McMichaels, who pursued Arbery in a pickup truck, told police they believed Arbery was a burglar. In the last 15 minutes, we just got their mugshots again. Here's another look at them from the Glenn County Sheriff's Office. And then tonight, the Georgia Attorney General's office tweeted out this response: "We are grateful the Georgia Bureau of Investigation has taken quick and decisive action. This tragedy cannot be undone, but this is the first step in what I am confident will be a swift road to justice."
The chance to speak with Ahmaud Arbery's football coach and two of his best friends tonight about the arrest right after it happened. These three guys just happened to be together, trying to figure out the next steps for demonstrations and social media campaigns. They told me they are joyful after waiting 74 days for these arrests to finally see these men taken into custody. But they say they won't really feel like justice is served until everyone involved is held accountable.
Until they stand trial, and be punished for what they're done, this tragedy. I think that'll give me the joy that I do need, the satisfaction is for the family, friends, and everybody in this community. I think this tragedy, it truly, not only sparked this community, but it sparked this world in a different way.
We're a community that trusts law enforcement. We had no idea the different things that were going on. I mean, our DA ran unopposed for 24 years. Nobody ran against her. We are a community that trusts law enforcement. And obviously what we're finding out now with the interim chief, Jay Wiggins, he's going to have to regain the trust of our community.
These three young men say they want everyone held accountable from top to bottom, including responding officers with the Glenn County Police Department. The officer who told Ahmaud Arbery's mother her son was shot in the yard while committing a burglary by the homeowner, which was a lie. All of those involved in the DA's office in Waycross and Ware County, those three young men say this was a cover-up. After viewing the cell phone video, the autopsy reports, and witness statements from this deadly confrontation, Waycross District Attorney George Barnhill says he didn't see grounds for an arrest based on the following. In a letter to a Glenn County captain, he writes, Greg McMichael, his son Travis, and Brian Williams appear to be in hot pursuit of a burglary suspect with solid first-hand probable cause in their neighborhood and telling him to stop. He goes on to write, it appears their intent was to stop and hold this criminal suspect until law enforcement arrived. He said it was within the scope of a citizen's arrest, but a Brunswick criminal defense attorney says that is not his interpretation of the citizen's arrest law or the facts.
But what's critical about Georgia's law, although you are allowed to detain someone as a citizen if you think they've committed a crime, you cannot use excessive force. So even if there was a crime committed and he was trying to hold on to Mr. Arbery to wait for the police, you cannot then escalate it, as I think happened in this case.
We also now know who shot this cell phone video of the deadly confrontation. According to Arbery's attorney, Lee Merritt, a man named William Roddy Bryan filmed the shooting of Arbery. Lawyers say Bryan told police he chased Arbery, who he and McMichael suspected was a burglar. Bryan's attorneys leaked the video, hoping that it would substantiate the McMichael's claim of self-defense. But instead, the video has created more questions about why no one was ever detained.
I don't think this is a good self-defense case for Mr. McMichael. I mean, number one, you see Arbery running down the street. He is not approaching the McMichaels. He's not threatening them. He doesn't present any sort of threat whatsoever. They are chasing him. And then at the point where Travis McMichael has the gun and is pointing it at Arbery, it is totally reasonable and justified for Mr. Arbery to try to defend himself. So I don't think that Travis McMichael can say I was acting in self-defense when it appears from the video that he was the aggressor in the situation.
Welcome back. Now, it is only the first step, the arrest. But please do bear in mind, the United States justice system has a lot of defense mechanisms to protect these types of people, especially when color is involved. Even more when it's law enforcement that's being accused of wrongdoings. So my advice, people, is expect the worst. We have been there before. And although they take these steps to placate the communities, we have oftentimes seen that those cases are then tried. In the case of this ex-police officer, I do not hold any hope that he will be found or held accountable for what he did, because he might well be tried in the same county, in the same courts where he operated as a police officer. He might be judged by his own friendly neighbors who respect him and love him and do not see a black life as worth sending a neighbor to prison. However, with the Security Council in place, with the Union of Black Nations in place, and all the mechanisms I just spoke about in place, that type of lottery would not exist. It would stop that lottery of whether you get justice or not because you're black. Because diplomacy and diplomatic lines of communication would have long since been established in this case. This innocent chap was shot on the 23rd of February. We're now in the second week of May. It's been 3 long months, near enough, that the family has been waiting for justice. And we all know if situations were reversed and the black fella had shot one of those perpetrators, if it'd been the other way around, that guy would have been arrested on the spot on the same day, would have been made a scapegoat of, and probably end up in an electric chair. This is why diplomatic questions about every injustice is an essential on moving forward. Guys, it's been a journey putting these ideas together. But there are many things I'm hopeful of, and I want to leave on a good note. I would like to suggest to everybody that the expertise and the more advanced knowledge of some of the black nations as opposed to the others can only benefit the whole group. For example, South Africa and Barbados are closer to a welfare state than Nigeria or the Sudan. Sharing knowledge and exchanging data and expertise can help these other countries grow their welfare states. Similarly, oil produced in Nigeria can help islands like Belize and countries like Senegal to get their energy cheaper. Ghana's coffee sold cheaper to Jamaica, who probably buys from the West at a greater price when the West was actually buying it from a fellow black nation. These are just 3 ways that the union can benefit the ordinary farmers, the ordinary fishermen, the ordinary cocoa planters, the ordinary oil workers, and the likes. Putting a welfare state, as making a welfare state plan as a priority, will lift millions and millions of black citizens across the world, and probably will do a lot more in eradicating extreme poverty in many of these nations than anything ever tried before. This is worth debating, this is worth looking into, and this is worth putting in place. Thank you very much for your time today. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys back on Monday. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.